Guys, welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be covering a really important topic, and that is how to beat the all or nothing mentality. So this is one of the biggest problems that I see and experience with clients who start working with me and just people in general that I'm chatting to. And I want you to picture the scene, okay? You've eaten and trained well all week. You're really in the zone. You're feeling absolutely fantastic. You get to the weekend and you might have a few drinks or a meal out. Okay, someone invites you, there's a nice occasion, you just fancy letting your hair down a little bit. You then think, oh, fuck's sake, I have just ruined everything that I've done so far. So your whole Sunday is then spent feeling sorry for yourself, feeling frustrated at yourself that you didn't have the discipline to just stick to it, and you go completely off the rails. You order in a Domino's, you just think, what is the point? You end up just lounging about all day and just feeling really frustrated with yourself. You might then actually start again on Monday, or you might think, oh, sod it, I can't be arsed, what is the point? I just don't have any discipline. Does that example relate? I want to just share another example as well. You might think, right, I need to take charge of my routines. I need to be more productive. And you go from getting up last minute at 8 o'clock, okay, to, right, I need to get up at 5, okay, I'm going to work out, I'm going to plan my day, I'm going to have an ice bath, I'm going to eat a really nutritious breakfast, and I'm going to do a load of house chores. And then by the time you actually get to work, you are knackered, okay, you are absolutely knackered, and you go, oh my God, I can't do this anymore, doesn't work, and then you go back to getting up at 8 o'clock. Okay, if you can relate to any of these types of scenarios, this is going to be for you, okay? And this is an example of all or nothing thinking, okay? And otherwise known as dichotomous thinking. So what that means with dichotomous thinking is that something is either good or it's bad, okay? You're either on it or you're off it. You are either super productive or you're being lazy. And that is what dichotomous thinking or all or nothing thinking is. Now, I just want to talk a little bit around it because it's really important to understand that we don't do these things or slip into certain habits or certain ways of thinking. We don't do it on accident if there is no benefit. This way of thinking actually has some benefits, okay? And it's human nature to kind of have a preference for extremes or the opposites and kind of avoid the grey area. And it's kind of an evolutionary mechanism. And I suppose the benefits of this way of thinking is that, dichotomous thinking or all or nothing thinking can serve the purpose of quicker decision making. It reduces decision fatigue, i.e. how many decisions you have to make day to day. And it makes things easier to decide. Okay, and that is actually quite helpful. So what's the problem then? Well, the problem is that this way of thinking no longer works in our current environment. We no longer live in a society where we only need two options. Our current environment is much more complex than find next meal and stay alive. Hey, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's days where you get hungry and it probably does feel a bit like that. But in general, our environment is much more complex than find your next meal and stay alive. Now, applying dichotomous thinking or all or nothing thinking to your current lifestyle in today's environment, in today's society, puts unnecessary pressure and can put you into kind of a chronic state of stress. And your all or nothing thinking, this is really, really important to understand. Your all or nothing thinking is not a sign of strength. It is not a sign of discipline. It is literally the reason you cannot sustain any results. And what I want to do in this podcast is actually just talk you through a few ways you can solve that and make it so much more effective for you so that you're much more consistent in the long run. Now, I also, just before I kind of go into the lessons, I want to reassure you that if you are currently going through a cycle of where you are all or nothing, you're on it, you're off it, and you just keep going through that cycle, you are not alone. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I personally have been through this cycle whether it's from a fitness perspective, nutrition, work, like house jobs, everything like that. I massively relate. And honestly, this is one of the, pardon me, this is one of the biggest problems that new clients have when they come to me. And I'm going to share some of the most effective strategies and things that you can do to beat this all or nothing mentality forever. So, how can you solve this? How can you stop being on the bandwagon or off the bandwagon? Here's how we do it inside Lead from the Front, and my clients have seen massive success with this. So there's two main things that I want to cover. Number one is I want you to start thinking of everything that you do on a sliding scale, not this or that. Okay? Think of it more as a dimmer switch rather than a light switch that's on or off. And on this sliding scale, it's going to go from the lower end of the scale being unhelpful to helpful. Okay? That's how I want you thinking about it. Now, this is really, really important for me to cover, and I'm going to give you a few examples. Whether something is helpful or not depends on the context in which it's done. Okay, listen to that again. Whether something is helpful or not depends on the context in which it's done. For example, right, if you are resting on the sofa and watching Netflix, if you have done nothing and you are complaining that you're feeling out of shape, you're complaining that you feel low in energy, you're complaining you're feeling like you're maybe stuck in a rut, that is an unhelpful thing to do. Like on the grand scheme of things, if you are doing that all of the time, just watching Netflix, and in the context of your life, you're feeling lazy, you're feeling out of shape, you're feeling uninspired to do anything, and you're feeling stuck in a rut, in that context, that is probably a very unhelpful thing for you to do. It's probably more helpful in that context, because remember, context is key, to do something challenging. Okay, and do something to actually create excitement for yourself. Do something that's actually hard to do, but once you've done it, you're going to actually start to feel proud of what you've done. Okay, and you're going to be able to create energy for yourself and create inspiration. Okay, so in that context, it's actually quite unhelpful. However, if you have been absolutely working like a beast, you are really on it, you're clear on where you're going, you've been working really hard, and you just need to rest, right? And you actually think, you know what, I'm proud of what I've done. I just need to chill out for a bit. Then going and watching Netflix is actually going to probably be really helpful for you to just recharge, to just switch off. And to be honest, I can massively relate to this because everything that I do week to week is growth-minded, personal development. I'm helping myself problem solve. I'm taking on new information from my coaches and mentors. I'm then helping my clients solve their problems and get themselves to achieving their goals. And my brain gets tired. Okay, doing this podcast is a high energy task and I do get tired. So for me, like one of my favorite things to do at the moment is when I make my lunch, I literally make my lunch, I go in, sit in front of the telly for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes and watch an episode of something. It's a helpful exercise for me to do. Okay, and that's just one example of how the context in which you do something is really, really important, because that's going to determine whether or not what you're doing is helpful or whether it's unhelpful. I want to share with you another example from like a nutrition perspective. Now, if I was to ask you which is the better option, brown rice or white rice, okay? We all know that eating primarily whole grain, less processed foods, higher fibre foods in general is going to be the better, more helpful option. However, I want to show you how the context in which you do it can change the answer. If you are someone who eats junk food, you don't really care about your nutrition too much, or you don't know where to start, and you know you don't eat particularly healthfully, then eating the brown rice is probably going to be the best option, because it's less processed, it's got more fibre, it's going to keep you full, and it's actually harder to overconsume the calories. Okay, in that option, going for the brown rice is better. However, if you are someone who is training really, really well, really frequently, you really take care of your nutrition, you've already hit your, say, 25 to 30 grams of fibre for the day, you've eaten lots of fruits, you've eaten vegetables, and actually you're going and really trying to fuel for a training session, in that case, if you've already hit your fibre targets, in that option, it would probably be a better option to go for the white rice. You've already got all the micronutrients that you need, all the vitamins and minerals. You've already had your fibre day, you've already hit your fibre target. And in that context, going for the brown rice is actually going to be probably have too much fibre, and then you could have gastrointestinal stress, okay? And that would be actually very uncomfortable. And therefore, you would perform worse in your session, okay? And therefore get a worse result. So that is just one example again, how you cannot categorize things as good or bad, and how you can't really have this all or nothing mentality or this dichotomous thinking in today's day and age, because it's all dependent on the context in which you do something in. So I really want you to think of everything as a sliding scale. Remember, everything is a dimmer switch. Everything is on or off. No, not on or off. Everything's a dimmer switch, not on or off. It's not like a light switch, okay? Even though I get mixed up. And how can you do this? You might be thinking, okay, Isaac, that's a really useful thing to think about, but how the hell do I determine whether or not something is going to be helpful or whether something's going to be unhelpful? Well, here are a series of questions that you can ask. So you will want to write these down. Number one, what has gone on for me recently? Okay, what has actually gone on? If you think over the past week or 2 weeks or month, what is the context of your life? Have you actually had a really clear run where you've had less demands, you've had lots of time for yourself, you're feeling very energized, or have you actually had a period of high stress? You might be going through a breakup, you might be going through recovery after being ill, you might have massive demands in work. And when you ask yourself that, you just create space to think, what is the context of my life at the moment? What has gone on for me recently? What demands have been placed onto me? That's really important to start that, because when you do that, you improve your self-awareness around what's gone on for you. Very, very important. Create space for that. Number two, and this follows on nicely from it, how am I feeling? So, for example, if you have had a stressful work period and you're like, right, I've had to make people redundant at work, that's been stressful, I've had increased demands, and I've actually had trouble at home or something, then when you get to how am I feeling, you might be thinking, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling pissed off, and I'm feeling like I need some rest. Okay, that might be it. So they follow on very nicely from each other. So what's gone on for me recently? Number two, how am I feeling? Number three, is there a problem? Is there actually a problem? That's a really important question to ask, because sometimes after you creating space to check in with yourself around what has actually gone on for you, you might be, oh, well, I'm tired because loads of stuff has happened for me. Is there a problem? Well, no, I actually just need to rest. Okay, that's really, really important. Sometimes there will be a problem. Sometimes there will be a problem in that when you are aware of the context of what's gone on for you, you might realise, oh, I've been doing completely the wrong thing for what I need right now. Okay, so that's a really good question to ask. Is there actually a problem? Number four, how would I rather feel? If you're feeling knackered, you'd probably rather feel a bit more energised. If you're feeling energised, you might actually be like, there's not a problem, I'm feeling good. Okay, and lastly, number five, what is the solution? Okay, if there is a problem, what is the solution? Okay, and in brackets, do the opposite. Okay, in general, if you're looking for the solution to a problem and you're currently experiencing it, it's usually do the opposite to what you've currently been doing. Not all the time, but sometimes, more often than not, do the opposite. So that is the first thing that I wanted to cover. Everything, think of it as a sliding scale, not this or that. And the questions to ask is number one, what has gone on for me recently? Number two, how am I feeling? Number three, is there actually a problem? Number four, how would I rather feel? And five, what is the solution? Okay, So the next thing, and this is going to be absolutely game changing for you, okay? If you've never done this before, this is going to blow your mind at how simple it is. Use range targets, okay? This is incredibly effective. And here's what most people do when they set themselves targets or set themselves goals. They say, I'm going to train 4 times per week, or I'm going to eat 1,600 calories a day, or I'm going to walk 10,000 steps every day. Why is this a problem? The reason this is a problem and the reason this encourages all or nothing dichotomous thinking is because you either have achieved it or you haven't. Okay, that is it. You've either passed and succeeded or you've failed. And this is incredibly difficult to deal with if you haven't thought about this stuff. If you haven't listened to this podcast episode, that is really, really hard for you to deal with. It's not motivating to set yourself a goal and not do it. Okay, every single time you do that, you lose trust in yourself. Every single time you set a goal and you are just backing up the fact, I don't follow through on what I say I do. So what are range targets and how can they actually help you beat this? Well, instead of saying, I train 4 times per week, you're going to say, I'm going to train between 3 and 5 times this week. Okay? Instead of, I'm going to eat 1,600 calories a day, it might be, I'm going to eat between 1,600 to 1,900 calories per day. Instead of walk 10,000 steps, it might be, I'm going to walk between 8 and 12,000 steps per day. Now, the reason this is so effective is because the lower target needs to be something that you can achieve on a tough day, okay? On a quote unquote bad day, something where stuff just goes wrong, you're not feeling in a particularly great headspace, you might be short on time, but this lower target has to be something that's achievable and realistic under those circumstances. The upper target is going to be much more optimal for you, okay? And I want to share with you an example of how you could do this. Say if you were tracking your food and you were trying to really work on your nutrition for fat loss or muscle gain or anything. I'll use like a fat loss example here, as that's obviously a very common goal for a lot of people who listen to this. So if you needed 2,000 calories to maintain your body weight, anything below 2,000 calories is going to put you into an energy deficit. It's going to put you into a calorie deficit where if you did that on a consistent basis, you would lose body fat and lose weight, okay? Now, if you needed 2,000 calories to maintain, if you said, right, I need to eat 1,600 calories a day, and that is my one and only target, what would happen if you said, if one day you went, I ate 1,800 calories? What would happen? If you did that and you weren't aware of these ranges, you have failed at your goal. Okay, you have failed. You have not done what you've set out to. And what is that going to do for your headspace? That is not going to put you into a positive headspace where you want to put in the work. You're just realizing, I failed. I didn't do what I said. Whereas actually, the problem here isn't that you went over your calorie target. You would actually still be in a deficit. You would still be getting the results that you want. Remember, if you needed 2,000 calories, this is just random numbers, by the way, that it would have to be specific to you. But the concept and the principle is exactly the same and very relevant. Anything below 2,000 calories would put you into a deficit. So even if you set yourself a target of 1,600 and you then ate 1,800, you're still moving forward. You are still in a deficit. You are still making progress. But if you only set the one target, you wouldn't be aware of that. You would have effectively failed at your target. And it's not actually what happened that stopped you making any progress. It's how you would react to that. Because if you failed at your goal and you think, oh God, I've ruined everything now, I'll start again next week, or you just give up, that is the problem. It's how you're thinking about it, how you're responding to the situation. That was the problem. It's actually what happened after it, not before. You were perfectly on track, but you just weren't aware of that. Really, really important. So instead of that, if you needed to be, say, below 2,000, I can't even speak. If you needed to be below 2,000 calories to be in a deficit, even if you hit 2,000 calories one day, you're still not moving backwards. You are literally just hitting the pause button for a day. But say if you did that 1 or 2 days a week, and then the other 5, you were actually at 1,800 calories or 1,700 calories for the other 5, you are still on over the course of a week, you would still be in a deficit. You would still be moving forward. It's really, really important to understand that. So this is why range targets are so effective, because instead of success or failure, I need to eat 1,600 calories, okay? You could be like, right, I'm going to be aiming between 1,600 and 1,900 calories, okay? Because if on a day your appetite is good, your energy is good, everything goes to plan, you might hit the 1,600 calories. That's fantastic. But on a day, something happens. The shop that you were going to get some stuff from is shut. Your car breaks down. Whatever. You have more stress. You don't sleep very well. You can allow yourself that range to be like, right, it's tough today. I'm going to allow myself a little bit more breathing room to go up towards the upper limit, the upper target. So you might have 1,900. And again, even if you hit 2,000, or even if you went over 2,000 for one day, okay, even if you had 2,200 calories for one day, you would be technically in a slight surplus for that day. But if that was one day and the other 6 days of the week, you are in your target, you are still moving forward. Okay, that is so, so important to understand. And hopefully me explaining that, you can now start to see how powerful that is going to be for you to stay on track consistently for the long term and not give up every time something isn't perfect. So using ranges means you either make progress, you make slower progress because you might go towards the upper range, but you're still moving forward, or you just hit the pause button. Just like if you were leaving the room on Netflix, you could hit pause. Nothing's happening. You're just going to get something and you come back and carry on again where you left off. Okay, it's exactly the same concept. But the amazing thing about this as well, and the benefit, obviously it's beneficial for your mindset so that you're not succeeding or failing. You can listen to the demands of your body and your mind on any given day. Okay, you are, by creating space for yourself, being like, what has gone on for me, right? And actually giving yourself this range to be like, what do I need today? That is so empowering. And you start acting and operating like an adult, like a leader, like someone who is in control. They know when can they push and when can they pull back. When is it appropriate to do that? And that is a skill that you have to learn. But the only way you're going to learn it is by practicing it and creating space to actually practice it. And you've made a great start by obviously just listening to this podcast and thinking about probably how this is going to apply to you and your goals moving forward. So it's very empowering for you to make that decision for yourself. It puts you into a state of, I am in control. I am in the driving seat. And that's exactly what you are. Okay? You do not need to be dictated to. Like your training, your nutrition, your goals, your targets that you set yourself, they are there to improve your quality of life. They are there to, allow you to serve your purpose, to make you feel better. And if you're setting targets like the dichotomous thinking way, the all or nothing approach, and you're beating yourself up if you don't hit your targets, that is not improving your quality of life. Okay? If you are beating yourself up by not hitting your targets. So this is a much more effective way for you to do that. And that is going to improve your quality of life and it's going to serve you. Okay? That's the whole point. Any of us are training. Any of us are eating well. Any of us are listening to personal development and trying to improve how we communicate, how we think. Okay? Is to improve our quality of life and make sure it serves us. So that is pretty much what I wanted to do. Last little things before I close off. I hope you're finding this useful so far. But the reason so many people get stuck, just following on from that, is people go from making progress, say Monday to Friday, to then maybe doing something where they would actually go over their, say, calorie limit, for example, The problem and the reason people stay stuck is they just have destructive, catastrophic thinking. And instead of just hitting pause or slow down, they go backwards. They completely catastrophize, think that everything has been ruined, when in reality you're not. You're still actually moving forward. And they end up going backwards. They literally, instead of hitting pause, they click rewind, fuck it, I'm going to start the episode from the start. Okay, that is literally what is happening, and that is why implementing these things is going to be so effective for you, whatever you're trying to achieve, whether it is improving your nutrition, improving your body, like training hard, performing at your best, becoming more confident in the workplace, in your personal life, with communicating with friends, relationships, whatever it is, this is going to be very useful for you. So there we have it, guys. 2 very powerful tools to beat the all or nothing mentality. And I hope that was useful. I really hope you took a lot of value from that. And I just want to close off by saying, if you are enjoying the podcast so far, I've had some really nice feedback, and I really do appreciate every single message that you guys are sending. And I would love for you to, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening on, say, Spotify or a podcast, rate it and leave a review. And if you actually have any questions, or you even want to work with myself, find me over on Instagram, Isaac J. Lewis. Okay, drop me a message and I'd love to chat. And I've got a load of free resources that would probably be very useful for you that I give to clients, and I'm sure I'll be able to help in some way. So I look forward to hearing from you. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.